Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at Zelda Ocarina of Time for Nintendo 64. It is, in my opinion, the best game for Nintendo 64. We can have the whole conversation about Majora's Mask at some point in this. But basically, instead of playing the game from square one, I wanted to try and reduce this video as much as possible. So I just picked a spot in the game that I thought would show the best and the worst of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back in time. Now, I've gotten up to this point by basically accomplishing things as a child, as Child Link. So here, I'm going to go back so I can become Child Link once more. Pretty much the same thing I do when I play this game, you know, because when I was a kid, this was like the first game that I beat on N64. Granted, I did use my friend's guide, but even so, it was still amazing. And just the map and the areas that you can go to are just mind-blowing compared even to Super Mario 64, you know. Yeah, epic game. I haven't played this on the Nintendo Switch. I intend to, but I've heard there are slight differences with some of the puzzles and stuff. So here I'm just changing my garb into my childhood garb and shield and such. The other cool thing was the automatic jumping. It was kind of one less thing that you had to worry about. So here I'm just kind of bringing you through places here, just kind of showing you what's going on. And here is Hyrule Field. Now, when you're a child and you don't have a horse, this thing ain't fun, let me tell you. It's too crazy. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to just make coffee and hold the joystick up. Speaking of the joystick, so a lot of people have said that its sensitivity is bad, and I kind of agree there because I do play modern video games. I also play emulators with, you know, USB controllers, and yeah, the joystick is a little weird on the 64, but you get used to it. So here I'm just trying to, I guess, figure out a song that I need to play, I think. I'm unsure. So yeah, lots of walking in this game. It's one of its downfalls, but the environment just makes it a lot more fun. So the ocarina is basically a magical musical device, and sometimes when you play certain songs, it makes certain things happen. Here I played the Song of Storms, and basically it's going to drain the well, which is a place I need to go. So this is, it's not really a side quest because you need this item, but this isn't really a dungeon. It's basically just kind of an item find that I'm going to. In dungeons, you will find items there, essential items that you need. So this one's a little bit easy, and it's just going to kind of give those who haven't played this, although I can't imagine who hasn't at this point, it'll give those who hadn't played this just kind of the gist of how it works. So the A button attacks there. My B button is a jab. You can see my C buttons. I can assign different devices to them. And yeah, the auto jumping, forward scroll, nothing crazy. Nothing crazy at all. The really annoying thing was Navi, you know? And she just says the same thing over and over and over again. And it's just like, she kind of becomes, when you know what to do in this game, she just becomes a nag. And it's like, hey, don't put your penis in a toaster. Just checking, you know? It's a little old. Alright, so there you just kind of have to know to walk through that wall. I've lost track of how many times I've played this game, but yeah, you know, I mean, I knew it was going to be there. These things suck. They take stuff from you. So it's better to kill them at afar. Also, one of my beefs with this, speaking of sucking, is there are animations and just things that go on a little bit too much. If you're just interested in playing the game, say once a year, as I am, I don't need to hear the whole story again. There should be a way to just skip through it, you know. Although maybe it was some type of a limit at the time as far as what game boards could handle. You know, I don't know. I only clean them. So here we're seeing some Z targeting, and when I use Z targeting, you know, I just hone in on a target. And you use Z to do it, thus the name Z targeting. It's so simple. Okay, this guy, so these enemies, pretty much anywhere, I mean, unless it's a boss, you don't really have to take them out. You can just let them go by. There are some that get annoying or can cause you damage if you ignore them, but you might survive. Here I'm basically just using my memory to get this item. And I was also kind of debating as there's more to this. I don't know if it's officially a dungeon, you know, or a level or whatever, or a temple in this case. But you know, you can get items. There's like a Skulltula here. You know, all that fun nerdy stuff. Nice. This enemy is really cool. It's not just, you know, hit B or A sort of thing. You have to lure him towards you. And those enemies are a lot more fun. We're gonna run into one later on. That, for me, is hard because it mimics your moves. But, yeah. So here, my tactic has always just been wind up like that. And the sword will strike him twice, along with your magic, I assume, taking him out faster. So here I just go to charge. And then I let down whenever I see his face. Not too hard. If you really wanted to, you could take out some of these arms if you were concerned about running into them, or backing into them. Like here, if I went straight back, it would have gotten me. So that's why I immediately put myself in another place. Oh, man. Sometimes for these things, it was a little bit too much work. I would say, especially well, when you're a kid and you get the water, it's not a temple, I don't think, but Lord Jabu Jabu. That thing was a little bit annoying with the tentacles there, so this doesn't reach that level of annoyance, but it's still just like, you know, come on. A little bit much. Okay, so here, I think I get the lens of truth, the eye of truth. I don't know. Realize. Lens of truth. There you go. So this was helpful when I first played this game with these descriptions. And sure, leave them in. But there's just small animation sequences that don't really need to be there. Okay, this I never really got other than maybe just making it easier for the player. Which is nice because I just had to beat up those guys. Now, typically, if this was a real dungeon or temple or whatever you want to call it, this would be a key. But there are other items here, like rubies and bombs and humpty-back camels, and, you know, I basically go through this a little bit to show you how the Eye of Truth works. It looks like there's a wall there, but there really isn't. There's a hole over there. There's a way to get to that chest by going into the bottom levels. But I don't get that far because, again, I'm interested in making this more fun and less lengthy, because just doing a few tasks in Zelda is lengthy. I think that's its biggest downfall, is essentially the time it takes to play it. And it's a real commitment. I mean, I've played this game for years now, and I love it to death, but yeah, some things, it's just a little too annoying. So I could go and, you know, get some keys and do all this BS. But I figured take the easy route and leave. So here again, we got this guy who conveniently exposes a bad part of the part that you need to attack. So, yeah, the enemies in this game aren't that smart. Good thing for me, too. When I was a kid, it was difficult for me to play video games, especially Super Mario, not Super Mario 64, but Super Mario on the NES or SNES. My friends were a lot better at it. So, this game, I loved this game because it, you know, you had fairies in your jars that could rejuvenate you, that could, you know, you could die and then just come back to life. It was an incredibly forgiving game. And in that sense, I guess they had to make it a little bit more of a challenge, so, you know, they added more challenge to it, because if they didn't, it would be extra work. Okay, so here I'm just going through my inventory. Oh, okay, I'm gonna warp out of there. So, beat me up, Scotty. This was another reason why I started at this specific point, is because I had warps, so you guys didn't have to watch me going all over creation there, all over Hyrule to get from one place to another. That is, I don't know, I guess one of my chief complaints with Link as a kid. Not that this game isn't awesome. I guess you could say in a way I'm nitpicking, because just the overall look and feel of this game is just amazing. And again, it was something where the universe was expanded beyond the player's expectations, you know. I spent a great majority of my time as Child Link just trying to beat that stupid Deco Tree level before I had a guide, and then all of a sudden I beat it, and now I could go outside of the little village area. I was like, whoa, there's a world out there, you know? Here the ocarina is going to paralyze my zombie things. When you learn the Sun Song, there's an inscription that says, hey, you know, this will help you with the undead, or something to that effect. And yeah, it's helpful, especially when there's a key or something involved. It just basically makes them, renders them inoperable, I suppose. So here, now that I'm adult Link, I don't have to just walk around. But here I had a little issue with getting Epona over here. It was strange. Typically, you'll be able to see Epona coming towards you, or at least somewhere on the horizon. But here, I don't know where he, she, it is. I'm unaware of cause any leftist outrage, especially since I'm going to be writing he, she, it. Aha, there we go. So this, in and of itself, was just a joy, and the added fun of it was there were Poes that you could hunt, better than that puny one over there, and you could collect, and you could bring to a guy who collected ghosts, and you get money for it. I think it's 50 rupees a jar, which is cool. So that was the biggest sell to me here with this game, are the side quests that you can do. It gave you a distraction when you're just frustrated on a certain temple, and you could even do small side quests. When you're just a kid, you can get more seeds for your seed shooter, the Deku. No, it's not the Deku seeds, I forget now. Whatever it is, you can get more ammo for your slingshot, basically. And you can get a bigger bag in the Lost Woods. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do just to distract yourself from the rest of the game. That was key. Here I'm failing at getting over a fence. I noticed that this happens with this one fence. I don't know why. Maybe it's just planted there for me. It's a vast conspiracy. I don't know. So we're continuing on.
Riding, la-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta.
I think I'm trying to trigger a ghost, but it doesn't seem liberal enough to be triggered. So at this point, oh, look at that. Oh, there we go. I got one. So this is the fun part, is the horse archery. It's a little challenging because you gotta aim the horse and then you gotta aim your bow. But yeah, so you collect these Poes. They're special Poes. In your jars. I have 3 jars. There was a glitch that one of my buddies showed me where you could turn an item into a jar, which is cool. But you wouldn't want to do that with, for example, the Ocarina, because you kind of need that thing. So I think he did it with the Deku Nut or something that you could basically get back. So, boys and girls, children of all ages, ladies and gentlemen, Damen und Herren, we are going to enter the Water Temple. And obviously I'm doing this because this is what is universally considered the worst part of this game. And for those who don't have access to playing this game anymore, it will be just essentially a reminder, but I'm going to go through the majority of the temple with you. And, I mean, it's not that hard. It's well laid out. The temple is cool. But it's just the switching that you need to do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play another temple. And you're going to see just the difference between the water temple and basically every other temple. So previously, I had to do something which was get lead boots. And, you know, I get it. The equipment it's like customizable. You can move stuff around. It allows you to do different things. Great. But this is just so overboard. This time. I've already opened it up. And just so you know, I played this, I think, over 2 nights, I believe. So I'm going to be cutting stuff out just where I feel it gets redundant. And, oh lord, does it get redundant. But at least I'm going to show you guys the overall layout, show you myself getting some keys, and then we're going to defeat the boss. I think all in all, I probably have about 3 hours worth of footage that I'm going through. So, yeah. Alright, so here we are at the controversial water temple. And you can see I've been in this spot a million times because I will never miss that second shot. So, it's a cool little premise. I like the idea of the water temple. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to a spot. at the bottom of this. And of course, to do that, we do our inaugural use of the iron boots. Get used to this. You're going to see me doing this a lot, switching from one to another. I think it's the same thing on the Nintendo Switch. I know I'm sorry, it was the Nintendo DS, wasn't it? I think it's the same thing on the 3DS, but I don't know. I haven't played it. I assume it is because it was one of the hallmarks of this temple, were the frustrations. But the nice part is it's laid out relatively easily. It's just a big square. So I found this pretty tricky of them. They create a sense of urgency, and now you're more focused on getting to where she is than you are of looking at your surroundings, because when you go to where she is, you have to come back here anyway. So you'll see on the next floor here, see that hole? That means that I could use a bomb to open that. There's a key in there. And as a kid, I wasn't really that observant, so a lot of that was lost on me, and I wound up just going back into, I don't know what to call it, the lobby area of it. But this is the easy way to do it. What's cool is, when you jump down, you don't actually take any damage. There I roll, because that's just my reflex. But yeah, you don't take damage. So there were kind of recurring puzzles, and you know, they were easy once you get the basics of this game and how things are used to do other things. It's relatively simple to figure out small mysteries like that one. And here we have these clammy things, I forget what they're called, but this is their first appearance in the game. Obviously, because we're in the water temple. So, as usual, defeat enemies in room, get reward, and we're rewarded with a key. You found a key. Blah, blah, blah. Don't forget, don't stick your dick in a toaster. So, without a map, I just go kind of methodically through this. Yes, I could have gone on to the series of tubes called the internet and gotten a guide out. But, yeah, I wanted to show you guys around anyway. So here we go, the switching of the boots. Now, I knew this was a spot I didn't want to be at, but I just want to show you guys. So, in this temple, I'm going to get a long shot, which is a variation of my hook shot, which of course, it lets you go longer. You know, I mean, you can reach a longer distance, thus its name, long shot. So here, I'm just working in a circle around the area, just trying to figure out what's going on. Moving stuff. I don't really recall what this does. I think in the end it will make sense. Maybe not. Oh, okay, there we go. thought that that went into a hallway and didn't expose something like this. I'm narrating this after I played it. Mostly because I did this ghetto style. This is a recording of a TV. But I don't know. I think it gives it a certain... I don't know what. So here, about avoiding those enemies or ignoring them, there you go. I just saved myself the hassle of having to go away. So now I'm going to go and collect some more keys. Again, I know what I played. I don't need to see the animation. But I wanted to show you guys this little thing because I thought it was kind of tricky of them. They made it so there's now a hole where that block used to be. So there's a key down there. Needless to say, even when you're a veteran like I am, you need a break from that silly old water temple. So we're gonna go and do some other things. And one of the things that impressed me as a kid that I just realized is the whole night and day thing. The sunrise, the sunset. It's probably relatively an easy thing to program since, you know, you're only seeing it from one perspective at a time. But it was really cool how you could kind of stop and smell the roses in this game a whole lot more than Mario 64 even, because Mario 64 was kind of based in this, I don't know what to call it, very cartoony land, you know, and it had the absurd in it, so it made you take it less seriously, I guess. Here, this stuff isn't as absurd, it's not as cartoonish, and it's more fantasy-like. And I mean, even just the lens flare there was just so cool when I was a kid. So there's one of those Poe that popped up. I completely missed it, of course. They just get kind of old to hunt down. I can't remember. I think he gives you another jar when you bring 10 of those guys back to that, the guy who buys them at the ghost shop. So here we are at Kakariko Village, one of my favorite places. It's really nice to look down from the mountain onto this village at nighttime. It looks really cool, even if it was just 64 bits. I would often admire scenery in this game. At some points, I will do it, just not as much. Because again, we're interested in making this go a little faster. So here you can see you can purchase things at the shop, nothing crazy. Basically, I'm just trying to waste all my money. Mostly because I had 99 rupees on me for 2 temples. Some things you can buy as an adult, but you can't buy them as a child. I don't think I can buy those arrows when I'm a child. Okay, so now, one of the side quests to this that involves the Skullatas is getting a bigger wallet. And also something I've never used, so let's see what this guy gives me. Okay, this is the Stone of Agony I never got to use because to this day I still don't have a Rumble Pack. But I guess I should change that.
The curse has been broken. Thank you.
Oh, okay, here we go. So, I got an adult's wallet. And then what was really cool was I looked around and I saw there was another guy. I wasn't expecting to get the giant's wallet, but I did. So that's cool. Especially since some of the healing potions cost 50 rupees. So you got 500 rupees, you're in like flip. Unfortunately, right now I have 9. So yeah, side quests are cool. Okay, so back to the Temple of Time, where I'm going to show you how harvesting works in this game. There are some hot spots. Rocks tend to be hot spots, especially on the mountain. So here I am as Kid Link. And to be honest, once I get the horse, I'm pretty much not interested in Kid Link. There I did a Z jump. If you hold Z and point your joystick left or right, and then hit A, you'll actually side jump, which is helpful against some attacks, obviously, ones that come straight at you. This all looks so familiar, don't it? So that's the genius of this game, is it uses the same layout, it's just the graphics in said layout has changed. So this is one of my favorite rupee harvesting areas. It's a little bit of work, but when you have the magic, you can do a few of these guys at a time. You can use a bomb, the whole 9 yards. When I was a kid, I would just go through and just chop everybody down. There, I admittedly got a bit backtracked because I wasn't thinking about what I wanted to do. So I had some issues in the water temple, and it was because I don't have a certain spell that I used to defeat. I don't know what to call this guy, kind of like a midway boss or a mini boss in a way. So I'm going back to the castle to retrieve said item. Okay, so this is an example of a Great Fairies Fountain. I've already been to one because I got my magic power enhanced. So here you just play the, was it Zelda's Lullaby? And a fairy comes out. What's interesting is I've heard many people say, not to be Fox News, some people say, yeah, I've heard many people say that fairy is a mistranslation of whatever the Japanese word is. They really mean spirit. So the whole Stalin thing is just left over from my childhood. We used to just use all kinds of inappropriate names while we played video games. Sometimes they would only allow you to put in 3 characters, in which case we would typically put in ass. Especially for N64, like Cruisin' USA. The console version of the arcade game, you can only put in 3 initials at the end. So there I looked up the Serenade of Water because whoop-de shit, I have said magic after all that animation. And now we have to watch a warp animation. Aren't you just so excited? Funny story, one of my students accidentally wrote this Lake Hylia music. I didn't realize it. Ah, yes. My mistake. I have to go there as an adult. Right. So, warp there first and then warp back. Now you can see the value of warps in this game and why I brought you here, or started you here, I guess I should say, because this video would have been tedious without it. And I'm sure there are videos where somebody plays the entire game, but that's not really my interest right now. My interest is showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly in this game. I couldn't imagine this game without warps, though, that's for sure. That would drive me nuts. It's bad enough as Child Link to have to traipse all over Hyrule, you know. Alright, so here we are, again, as Adult Link. And why I'm not using my ocarina, I don't know. Maybe I just didn't realize what I was doing. Yeah, it'd been a long night that night, that's for sure. So I guess what I'm really saying is do the full animation once, but then when I want to warp to another place for the second, third, fourth, fifth, blah, blah, blah time, just make me appear there and make that little swooshy thing go around me. You know? The animations in this game, granted, they were cool for the day, but I remember even then, even just replaying this game for the second time, I was just sitting there pressing A like, yeah, I don't care about the plot. I don't care about the plot. I want to play the game. Don't care about the plot. You know. Okay, so I've spared you guys some Water Temple navigation, and I've gotten to this point, and this probably is one of the more challenging things in the Water Temple. The enemies in the Water Temple, thankfully, aren't that challenging compared to other stages, but the map is just really annoying. Not to mention just the take your boots on, take your boots off sort of thing. Yeah, really annoying. Okay, so here I'm just using my hookity shot to go up there. I don't know why I just didn't go for the top. And now, I'm on to the fight that I lost before. So there was a lot of kind of cause and effect in this game, which was cool. And you had to do things in a certain order. So here, I, of course, know that the water's going to rise. And that's going to cause those guys to attack me more. So it's easier for me to just attack them from afar. So now, I'm just going around this, and there were kind of easy puzzles in almost every room, like this. Just stuff that was the more forgiving part of it, is the majority of this wasn't that hard to figure out. Variations on a theme. This particular dungeon, though, a lot of times the enemies just kind of show up when you least expect them. Here I was hoping to get one of those healing fairy things, but instead I just got MP, which is okay because now that I have this magic spell, it's going to make my life a lot easier. Unsure why I chose the hook shot. So this is my favorite room in the entire game, where I'm just applying the magic. And it really shows you the attention to just the aesthetics of this game. To me, that was a big thing. Alright, so let's watch me play this fight. As you can see, I'm really bad at doing what you're supposed to do, which is get behind him. Part of this is a camera angle thing. I wish that there was a pullback like there was in Super Mario 64 in this game, where you could see more, but alas. All buttons are pretty much taken. So. So there I actually managed the attack you're supposed to manage. I couldn't imagine doing that the whole time. I've always just used my fire spell, generally speaking. So yeah, it's so cool how that changes. I love the way that that room changes. So here I found this new item in the dungeon, which is the long shot. As I mentioned before, it shoots you long, so yeah, self-explanatory. And again, just animations I don't need to see. That seems to be a theme. I was recently reviewing Sam & Max Hit the Road, and yeah, it's the same thing, just a boatload of animations that I could do without. Now, for those of you who haven't played this game, just please know that I'm skipping a lot of the water temple, and we've already, granted I've done other things too, but we've already been here for like 40 minutes. The water temple is excruciating, and you'll see what I mean because we're going to do another temple next. And it's just a lot easier, there's less navigation to deal with. A lot of things are more straightforward. But here, we are going to defeat everyone's favorite, and I say that sarcastically, boss, the water temple boss. This weird water thing. So yeah, you can see why I consider this anyway the worst temple of the entire game. And that's why I wanted to include it here, was because you guys needed to see this game at its best and its worst. So just to recap, we saw it at its best with its terrain and just the infinite amount of possibilities. I don't do it here, but you can even go back into old places with your new tools and find new things, specifically skull hollows, little spidery things that give you the medallions. So this boss is extra fun, but the other bosses are relatively simple. The next temple we're going to encounter is, I believe, not the it's the Spirit Temple, I believe. Either that or the Shadow Temple, one of the two. And its boss is a heck of a lot easier. So here the tactic is I'm just using the hammer, because different things will give you different hit point amounts. Here the hammer gives me more hit points against the boss than the sword does. And it's kind of pointless for me to use my shield here because it's pretty useless. The other difficult part is just timing the thing. And you can see there I made the mistake of bringing him too close to the edge. So my tactic, aside from using the hammer, is to just kind of chill out in the corner here. Yay, a little bit of victory animation, which is cool, and yeah, also tedious at this point. To me, I was just happy to be done with this temple. And I think I'm also spoiled now because now that I use emulators, I don't use Nintendo 64 emulators, but I use NES and SNES. And I just assigned one of the buttons on my USB controller to be fast forward, so you kind of miss it when you're playing on the consoles. And even though this is a classic, iconic game and ages well, it still has the issues of just too many cutscenes, too many little story time things that I personally don't give two craps about. Speaking of which, so I remembered while I was doing this, while I was filming this, thinking, oh my god, my high school girlfriend had kind of this updo thing that she would do, and it made her look similar to Princess Ruto in the whole, head shape arena. That was as far as it went. She didn't look like a fish, but yeah, I remember on occasion calling her Princess Ruto and her not getting it because she didn't pretty much ever played this game when we were kids, or in college for that matter. But yeah, just a small thing I had to throw in. I'm sure that was kind of an updo of the 90s anyway. Yay, character awakens as the sage, as they always do, with each medallion you get. And remember, don't stick your penis in a toaster. Now this is the type of cinematic animation that I enjoy because it's looking at more terrain. It's less about an effect and more about a feel. feeling and just different perspectives. You know, it's really cool. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next temple. And again, I can't remember if it's the Shadow Temple or the Spirit Temple. But whichever one it is, it's going to be infinitely easier than the one we just came out of. And again, keep in mind, you didn't see half of the traipsing around that I did. Even being a veteran of this game, there are just some parts of that dungeon that you don't quite remember. There's always that one freaking key when you get to the very end before you get the boss kid. Now here, in much less time, I'm going to do a much more straightforward dungeon or temple or whatever you wish to call it. This, too, I thought was a much better animation sequence because it felt more cinematic. And you got multiple angles of the same shots of different places. And the other animations, like the warp animations, they're just so basic. And maybe it's also because they're overused. Maybe this is kind of like a palate cleanser to my eye. But yeah, these animations I like, these little bit of character things that happen. There are other, much less involved character interactions that you have that aren't as cool. Little George Lucas dissolve there, always helps. And now, you know, we've changed the feel of all this because it's raining, and I thought it was cool how these areas get cursed. And again, there's more laying pipe, as they call it. But at least that was a good sequence. Again, another reason why I had you guys start where we started. Okay, so here we are at the beginnings of the next temple, and you can see it's above the graveyard. And yeah, I don't know why I felt the need to zoom in there. I think the sun confused me a little bit. But anyway, here it's rather obvious what we need to do, and keep in mind if we didn't have Din's Fire, we wouldn't be able to get into this joint. So that's what's cool about this game, is it's somewhat dependent on you to travel around to check out the nooks and crannies and to just explore. And exploring was half the fun of this game. Even just traipsing around on your horse for a little while was fun. So I also have this magic eye thing still. I forget what was called. The Lens of Truth, that's what it was. So, one of the things I have to do is just point this eagle at the one true skull, and the one true skull is the one right after this one. For some reason, I think I have a little bit of trouble with this because it's really the controls, and I just felt like it didn't really lock in. I think the thing too is you have to wait a certain amount for it to take effect. There we go. Okay, so now the gate is open, but I still can't get over there. I need some magic shoes. Yes, that was a Forrest Gump reference. So this particular area isn't that straightforward, and they also have the "don't stick your dick in a toaster" messages coming up a tad bit too much. I mean, I don't know why they felt the need to constantly put that up. Jeez. So once you get through all that, you go through one of these glorious fights again. And the nice part is you've already fought this guy, so you know how this is going to go down. So I always found the like quivering animation sequence of this thing dying rather odd, but yeah. So here, let's see what I get. You've heard of the hoverboard? Well, these are the hover boots. Also, the fact that we just had that redundant messaging when I already solved something and it's still telling me to solve it. Wait. So yeah, this is a good game in and of itself, and again, the reason why I'm showing you these two temples is because I want you to see essentially the two extremes, how great this game can be and how frustrating this game can be. But again, the beauty of it is they have these small things that you can go and do when you're sick of dealing with the water temple or whatever. You can go and get the Lens of Truth, or you can go and free some guys over at the Gerudo place there. I think it was the Gerudos anyway. You know, there is always something you can do. There are even just side quests that are almost superfluous to the game, such as the mask thing. And the mask thing, basically you sell masks to different people and, you know, eventually you get some kind of reward. And that, of course, played into Majora's Mask, which is a very hot topic with all Zelda fans. I am not a big fan of that game, at least in its original incarnation on the 64. I have students who have played it on the DS, and they said it was a lot better. And yeah, there are a multitude of reasons why I'm not a fan of it. The biggest thing is that timer. Angry Video Game Nerd did a video on it a while back. You guys should check it out because it really kind of just shows you all the flaws with it. That being said, Majora's Mask was really cool in some ways, though, because you could become the different characters races or species or whatever you want to call them. And it expanded the universe a little bit. But the Ocarina of Time will forever remain a classic. And yeah, that water temple will always remain the scourge of every Ocarina of Time fan everywhere. So you can see that I'm advancing pretty quickly with this compared to the water temple. The map is a heck of a lot easier. I wanted to go back and show you guys a little trick. We've already been through this corridor, but I always used this little trick when I was a kid just to kind of get through everything so I didn't have to deal with that spider and stuff. That hallway, essentially, when you fall off these platforms, you get warped back to that hallway. It may happen here. And you have some very classic Nintendo elements there, like the guillotine things. It's very reminiscent of the chain balls in Super Mario. So yeah, this game just combines classic video game, specifically, you know, side-scroll stuff, and 3D worlds. It's really cool. The enemies I also liked because they vary a lot. In some of the shoot-'em-up games for Nintendo 64, the only thing that varies really are hit points and slight appearance, but here you have enemies that use different tactics, and you subsequently have to use different tactics. So this is one of the many collection games. What's nice is at least when you collect these, you get rupees for them. And yeah, this level is just so much more straightforward. I didn't actually do the beginning levels and the kid levels because they would have been too quick, and I feel they wouldn't have shown the versatility of this game. So I knew there was a key in here, and I knew what I had to do. I just couldn't quite remember exactly what I had to do. So finally switch back to my other boots. Here I think I get squished. Yep, there you go. And thank God they don't start you back in those beginning corridors. They just bring you back to the beginning of the room. So sometimes your hookshot can connect to certain things that you wouldn't think it would connect to. So here I'm just trying that, and this is me genuinely, although I've done this before, I'm genuinely just trying to figure out what the heck I had to do in this room. I knew that I had to stop those spiky things from moving around. I just forgot how. So here I'm just exploring, and this shows you essentially what real gameplay is like when you don't know all the answers. So here I think this is a key, so I'm like, oh, okay, I figured it out. Maybe I don't have to, and yeah, it's arrows. So at this point, because this is a higher temple in the game, you know, they mess with your head a little bit. But the advantage to exploring is you can find, you know, your Skulltulas, you can find other secrets, you can find items. Everybody wins. So I knew that there was a block that I had to move, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's inside the walls. I just need to use that lens of truth thing. And there she blows. See? Now there's a sign, I don't know if I actually go over it, but it says something, you know, something to the effect that one must see the truth to find the answer, you know, or something like that. Some cryptic thing. So here what I do to get the real key is I just basically push this forward, and you can see it stopping the spikes from moving. When I used to play this game knowing what I was doing in this particular room, I would just push the thing in the middle, and then I'd go and collect the Skulltula and, you know, the arrows, and then I'd continue pushing it to the end. So yeah, nothing totally crazy, and it's not like, you know, there were games when I was a kid where you had to do like the tile puzzle games and stuff, and it was just it was too much. Here, these are, realistic, simple puzzles that you can figure out that aren't going to drive you nuts. And that was the key to this game. So, I usually just use those things to traverse around. It makes it easier because they lift you up and you can just jump over. Got 5 rupees there. Empty shit. There I'm just using the Lens of Truth because sometimes there are boxes that you can only see with it. So yeah, again, just think about the contrast between the water temple and this temple. It's so much different. And this is just, I guess really it's the equivalent here of just those old school side-scroll games where you just keep going forward. Many of the temples are that way. You don't really have to backtrack that often. But in the water temple, that's all you do is backtrack. And the design of the level is really cool. But yeah, it's just, it represents basically the hardest aspect of this game. What's really cool is sometimes you wind up not even needing the Lens of Truth anymore, because if you know an object is there, you can just walk over it. So, for example, here I know that there are hidden platforms. I don't know why I got distracted by this guy. I could have just walked off. I should have. My tactic usually is to try and push them off, and usually that works, but for some reason, not today. And you can see that stabbing underneath the shield tends to help a lot. Just doing that jab. So here are the platforms, and you can see when I just remove the Lens of Truth, they're still there. So yeah, that's the cool part, is once you've played this game once or twice, and you just kind of memorize where all this stuff is, there's no need for ye old Lens of Truth. Lastly, I decided I wanted you guys to see how the boots and stuff play into some of the other gameplay. Well, really just the boots in this case. So here I'm wearing the iron boots because these fans will push me around if I don't. And, you have to switch around, yes, but it's not as bad as that silly water temple. And to be honest with you, hate to keep going on about that silly water temple, but yeah, it's something that I basically dread every time I play this game. And I love this game. This game is my favorite game I guess really of all time. I can't tell you how many times I've played it. So there, I just used the hover boots and that fan thing to push me over there. And this kind of shows you the fun of the deceptiveness of this game. So typically, you find enemies and you defeat them and you wind up getting a reward, So here I go ahead and, defeat these enemies. Those jars, man. Okay, so the door reopens, so now I'm free again. And then I get this little treasure thing. So I go ahead and open it, and you'll notice that it's a rupee. You'll notice that I can't go forward because I don't have any keys left. And at this point, I've found every key that I need to. It's not like I was in the water temple where I needed certain things to get certain keys. I don't know if you can see it, but I just zoomed in on that one little spot, and there's actually, you can see through that crack that there's a chest there. What's really cool is you can see the open icon is on there, and you'll notice that I took off the Eye of Truth. So, technically speaking, you don't really need the MP, the magic power, to access those objects. You only need them to see them. So, I'm about, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of the way done with this. And most of these levels just play like this. It's relatively simple. Just you run into similar tasks, moving blocks, fighting guys, finding keys, the basics. And I'm just going to play the rest of this footage out for you because you're also going to see what a boss is like in the other levels too. So I think you guys are seeing me switch stuff around a lot because I'm still in switching mode after going through the water temple there. I don't know why, but I think it's just, you know, reflexes essentially. And you do, when you have so many items, when you're adult Link like this, when you're this far in the game, you are going to have to switch some stuff around, but nothing is worse than switching from the regular boots to the lead boots to the regular boots to the lead boots, back and forth. It just drives me nuts. So here I'm actively fighting them. I don't think I have access to the Nehru's Love spell yet, and that basically just creates a shield around you. It's very helpful in the final temple when you're at the castle. I guess I don't really know if that's called a temple or not, but at the very last level, if you will, of this game, that Nehru's Love comes in handy, let me tell you. So I think I could have still just ignored those enemies, but yeah, I mean, you're on the boat ride, you might as well fight them, right? So now you can see that basically I'm stuck here, and I think the natural thing for anybody who hadn't played this game before would be to go through that door on my, well, currently on my right. I don't know if my Din's Fire spell would have worked there. I tend to always use the fire arrow, but who knows, maybe the Din's Fire thing would have worked. I don't think I can throw a bomb that far, but I don't know. Maybe just that for shits, I'll go back to this and try that. But yes, historically I've always used the fire arrow. So now I need to go get another key and the boss key. And this room that I'm going into is really, really cool. So there are walls here. It's just you can't see them without the Lens of Truth. And you don't really need the Lens of Truth. What I do is I just keep walking until I bump into a wall, and then I just know to go around it. So this is one of my favorite little sequences. And I've never tried the arrow, but the arrow doesn't work, so I have to use my fire spell here. So again, compare what it took to get the boss key here and the boss key in the water temple. And yeah, I mean, there were just regular old dungeon keys that I couldn't access without that special long shot. And again, if the water temple wasn't so complicated, I don't think we all would be hating on it so much. Okay, so now I'm going to just work my way constantly to my right. And again, I'm not even using the Eye of Truth, or the Lens of Truth, rather. So, I think there's another key in here. Maybe a spider. Oh, okay, so this is one of the spider rooms. So, this, I guess, is kind of disappointing if you're like me. So, at the time, I didn't realize that there wasn't a key in this room. So, I went ahead and solved the room anyway. And you're not locked in it, but there are just basic puzzles to solve. So previously, to get a key, I don't think I showed it, but I had to throw a bomb into a skull. And here, I did really well, I think, with the aiming. It's not easy. The nice part about the plant bombs is they last a little, they have a longer fuse, essentially, than the ones that you have. Also, you'll see that the sprites in this game are relatively forgiving. There I hit the rim, and I think I'm going to miss a couple more times, but with the one that I actually get in, I mean, arguably, you could call it hitting the rim, too. Same thing with the fire when you're using an arrow to propagate fire. Yeah, see, that one was kind of just let in there. It's nice because you don't have to worry about being absolutely precise, and I'm sure that that's a feature of just the Nintendo 64. So here I'm going to collect this gold ticket. I think at this point I have like 30-something of them. As mentioned before, I don't use the Stone of Agony because in my lifetime, unfortunately, I've never used a Rumble Pack. I think it's about time I buy one since I own at least 20-something Nintendo 64 games and 2 systems. I'm curious what the experience is like with the Stone of Agony, and how much it would really help me with finding extra goodies. So I'm continuing to move on to my own right, and here I'm using the Lens of Truth. This is the fun part about this, is you can't use your magic for anything else. So then I just turn the lens off, and then I do this, and this will usually do the trick. So one is still not dead because something hasn't been revealed, but that took care of it. In some cases, those little hands will turn into other bigger hands. Not in every case, but in a few. And it's not a whole lot of fun. Okay, so I think this is the key I need. Yep. Alright, and that's pretty much everything here. And because I've been going through this one way, that means that it's going to be easier to exit. Granted, I have a map and everything, but to be honest, I've never been good at navigation, so I just like to methodically go through, so that way, you know, I can find my way out easier, and I'm not retracking, or backtracking. And you can see that, you know, once I get the main guy, I can just kind of ignore those small hands. If I wanted to, I could just ignore the big hand, too. You know what they say, big hand, big gloves. Alright, so now we're going to go into... Oh man, I cannot remember the name of this guy. Well, we'll see it anyway. To fight this boss. And I was expecting at least a fairy or something here. Granted, I don't know how the N64 is programmed, like if it gives you that stuff when it needs or if it's already predetermined. So this looks scary without the Eye of Truth, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, it's relatively simple, but I managed to screw it up at one point. Let's find out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is pathetic. Oh, man. Yeah, that is embarrassing. That sucks. So it's probably been at least a solid year since I played this game, and I have to say, for the record, I'm not very happy with my level of play here. I know I can do better. But yeah, I mean, again, this is something for you guys to check out, especially for those of you who haven't played this game. I'm sure there's not a ton of you. This is one of my favorite bosses. I mean, maybe because I'm a musician, I'm biased, but I think it's like Bo Bongo or something. And it's relatively simple because his attack is hands and then charge. So what you do is you shoot arrows at his hands and then you shoot an arrow in his eye. So you can see his hands with the naked eye, but you need to use the lens of truth to actually see him, to see his eye. Z targeting is always your friend, and you just have to time this right. That's pretty much the key. Nice. The other nice thing about having just some extra fairies in your jars is it just gives you a little bit more confidence. You know, it's a psychological thing, I think, because you know you have essentially extra lives. You can say, oh, well, you know, it doesn't matter, I can take some damage and the fairy will just revive me, it'll be fine. That I didn't like. I don't like how the shield doesn't actually protect you from his blows. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But whatever. The nice thing is he gives out arrows, he gives out magic power, so you don't have to worry about, you know, re-upping a supply before you fight him, which is good because if you don't know you need magic and arrows and stuff, you're pretty much screwed. Especially if you don't have the extra arrow capacity that I got. Yeah, so see how easy that was? Again, compare it to whatever the name of the, you know, the last boss in the water temple there was. This is much different. And the graphics here are just really, really cool. One of the complaints that Angry Video Game Nerd had about the Majora's Mask thing was that sometimes after you finish the boss, you wouldn't see the heart right away. And I found that an odd complaint because the same thing happens in this game. You have to just kind of look around for it. Sometimes it's not easily found. It could be in some nook or cranny of the specific environment you're in. Alright, so here we are again at the Chamber of Sages, and because, you know, we needed to see all this animation again. This is kind of my beef with all video games made at the time. They just went a little bit too much on the plot. You know? Just did a little bit too much. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this thing. I know it was long, but I couldn't do something short for this. I couldn't give this video game the justice that it deserves. So all in all, I rate this 10 out of 10, even with the issues that it has. And yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to be doing some more. I've done previous ones. Did Mario Tennis. I did my least favorite video game, Marines. And I did a couple others. So there's some more coming down the pike. This isn't really a big project for me that I'm working on. It's just kind of something that I'm doing for shits. You can see there's boatloads of other projects going on my channel, so please check them out. Thanks for watching.
Hey!